Chapter 10. Eve woke with a start. Not from a dream, from a presence. One that had already left, yet still lingered in the air, like the last echo of a fading song. She turned, her breath unsteady. The stars above stretched vast and undisturbed, but the night was not the same. It was as if the garden itself was holding its breath. Something was coming. And now, she remembered, the angels had come. Not to tell them what they already knew, but to tell them, "It is time." The air shimmered, not softly, not like the gentle rippling of water in the breeze. No, this was forceful, as though reality itself was bracing. The sky split, not with violence, but with an undeniable authority. And then, they came. Gabriel, Cassiel. They did not descend like drifting embers, like soft whispers of light. They rushed down like warriors, like storm and flame, and the ground beneath them seemed to hum with the weight of their arrival. Adam and Eve had felt their presence before. They had known the majesty of heaven's messengers, but never like this. This was not a visit. This was a summons. Adam was already standing, his body tense with instinct. He did not yet understand. Eve rose beside him, her breath catching as the two beings of fire and brilliance stepped forward. They were magnificent, radiance wrapped in form, power bound by love. Their robes shimmered like woven morning light, their wings vast and unmoving. But their faces were solemn, tight with urgency. Something had changed. Eve's lips parted. "You have come again so soon." Gabriel's golden gaze met hers, unwavering. "Because there is no time." Adam frowned. "What do you mean?" Cassiel's voice was quiet, but his words landed like thunder. "He is no longer watching." A stillness fell over the garden. Gabriel's wings twitched, as though holding back something vast, something burning. His voice was steady, but beneath it, there was the edge of something neither Adam nor Eve had ever heard before. Not warning, not caution, grim certainty. Lucifer has made his choice. Adam's chest rose with a slow breath. His shoulders squared. "Then let him come." Gabriel stepped forward. His presence was like fire, not consuming, but refining. The light of heaven's warrior, the first to drive Lucifer from the gates of the holy city. And yet, there was sorrow in his face. "You do not understand," Gabriel said, his voice softer now, heavier. Gabriel's wings rustled faintly. "He hates you." The words cut through the air like a knife. Eve gasped softly. "Why?" she whispered. Cassiel's gaze was heavy. "Because you walk in the light he lost. Because you have what he threw away." Cassiel's sapphire eyes flickered with something unreadable. "You knew the test would come." He exhaled, and the weight of eternity moved with him. "But you did not know how soon." Eve swallowed. Her fingers curled into Adam's. "How soon?" she whispered. Gabriel's golden gaze held hers. "He moves now." The words landed like a hammer. Adam's jaw tightened. Eve's heart pounded. Gabriel did not look away. Even now he is preparing. Even now his shadow is reaching toward the garden. Adam's chest rose with steady resolve. "He cannot touch us," he said. It was not a question, but a declaration. Eve's breath hitched. "But we are safe." Cassiel's gaze was unreadable. "As long as you remain in obedience." Adam straightened, his grip tightening around Eve's. "Then there is nothing to fear." Gabriel's wings stirred at his sides. He studied them, these two who did not yet know grief, who had never yet tasted sorrow. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not just urgency. Pain. "You think strength is enough?" he said quietly. Adam's brows furrowed. "Is it not?" Gabriel's jaw tightened, but it was Cassiel who answered. "Strength is not the test." Cassiel turned, gesturing toward the garden, the trees, the rivers, the endless beauty, and then toward the one tree that stood apart. "The Almighty has given you freedom, dominion. Every tree, every fruit is yours, but one is set apart." Eve's lips parted. "The tree of knowledge." Gabriel's gaze met hers. "It is a covenant, a pledge of love, a choice." Adam exhaled, already understanding. "We will obey," he said firmly. Cassiel's eyes darkened slightly. He had seen time's rivers shift before. He had seen choices ripple into eternity. And yet, he said nothing. Gabriel stepped forward. "Listen well, he will come." Eve shivered. Gabriel continued, his voice low and firm. "He cannot harm you, not while you remain in the will of the Almighty. If you do not yield, he has no power." His voice was low, weighted with the knowledge of eternity. Adam and Eve stood frozen. Gabriel took a slow breath. "Lucifer is not coming to challenge your might," he said. "He is coming for your trust." A silence. And then, so softly, Eve almost did not hear it. Cassiel murmured, "And trust is the most fragile thing of all." Eve's lips parted. Her pulse raced, not out of fear, but because something inside her knew it was true. Adam's expression remained firm. "We trust the Almighty." Cassiel's gaze did not waver. "Then hold to that." Gabriel exhaled, stepping back. The tension in his shoulders remained, but the decision had been made. "The Almighty will not shield you from choice," he said, "nor will we." Adam and Eve exchanged a glance. Gabriel's voice was gentler now, but no less powerful. "You will not be alone, but the choice must be yours." Eve inhaled deeply, looking between them. "And if we remain faithful?" Cassiel's gaze softened, and something in him, something old as the stars, something deep as the rivers of time, felt sorrow. Not because he knew what would happen, but because he had seen this before. Not here, not them, but others. 1,000 choices, 1,000 moments where trust had been tested, and the weight of history was heavy. But still, he gave the only answer that mattered. "Then you will walk with him forever." Cassiel's voice was softer, almost pleading. "But if you disobey, you will know sorrow." Eve looked between them, her heart tightening with something she could not name. Adam's shoulders straightened. His hand found Eve's. "Then we have nothing to fear." And then softly, Eve spoke. "I will not be deceived." The words fell so easily from her lips. Cassiel inhaled sharply. Gabriel's eyes flickered with something unreadable as he spoke one final time. His voice, though steady, carried a weight that settled deep in the air around them. "Do not separate," he said, his golden eyes locking onto Eve's. "Remain together in all things. There is safety in unity. But if you stray apart, the danger will find its moment." Eve felt Adam's grip tighten around her hand. Gabriel's wings shifted, the faintest ripple of tension running through them. "Hold fast to the instructions given to you. In obedience, you are secure. In perfect trust, no harm can reach you." His words lingered like the final note of a solemn song. And then they bowed. Their wings swept back, their robes billowing with celestial light. They would not force them. For love is not love unless it is chosen. The messengers lifted their gaze one last time, as if imprinting this moment into eternity. And then they were gone. Far beyond the garden, in the place where light no longer reached, Lucifer smiled. He had heard the descent. He had felt the weight of their presence. He had known they would warn them. It did not matter, because he knew what the angels did not. A heart, convinced of its strength, will never brace for the moment it is tested. They were ready to resist him. But that was never his plan. The trap was already set. And as Eden slept beneath the stars, the abyss trembled with the laughter of the fallen. The war had begun. The days of light. The days passed like golden threads woven into the fabric of eternity, each one brighter than the last. The warnings had been real, yes. The words of the angels had carried weight. And yet, as the sun continued its gentle dance across the sky, as the rivers sang their ceaseless melody, as love itself breathed in every leaf, every petal, every whispered breeze, how could there be room for fear? Eden was, as it had always been, perfect, whole, untouched. Adam and Eve awoke each morning to a world bathed in gold, the first light spilling through the trees like liquid fire. The air was cool against their skin, scented with the fragrance of blossoms opening to greet the dawn. The rivers shimmered with the hues of the sky, reflecting the heavens so perfectly it seemed as though two worlds lay above them, one near, one far. And so, in the splendor of paradise, the warnings dimmed, like a fading echo in the back of their minds. They had work to do. Not labor, not toil, but the joyous occupation of those who had been given dominion. Each morning, Adam would rise with fresh purpose, his hands eager to build, to shape, to create. He had chosen a place, nestled between two great trees where the light danced through the branches in the morning and the stars shone unobstructed at night. There, he laid the first foundations of their home, not of wood and stone, but of woven branches and living vines, their leaves braided together to form a shelter that breathed with the wind. Eve watched him work, her heart full. He moved with ease, the rhythm of creation in his every motion. His hands, strong and sure, wove the dwelling into existence as though he had always known how, as though the knowledge of making had been placed within him at the moment of his first breath. She laughed as she handed him the strands of softest ivy, marveling at how the structure began to take shape. Arches woven from branches that bent but did not break, doorways shaped not by cutting, but by guiding the living growth. Their home would be more than shelter. It would be a sanctuary, a place where love would rest, and the laughter of their future children would one day echo beneath the canopy of stars. "What do you think?" Adam asked, stepping back, hands on his hips. Eve tilted her head, her eyes sparkling. "It is perfect," she said, then teased. "But a little more on this side would balance the light better." Adam groaned dramatically. "You see? I build, and she critiques." Eve grinned, nudging his shoulder. "It is our home, is it not? Should it not be perfect?" Adam gave her a knowing look. "Perfection," he said, "is standing right before me." Eve rolled her eyes, though her cheeks warmed at his words. And so they built, not in haste, but in joy. Woven vines, smooth stones for seats, a roof of flowering branches that would bloom in every season. They built not to shield themselves from the elements, for there was no danger in Eden, but because it was in their nature to create, to shape beauty from what had already been given. And when their hands grew still, when the golden light stretched long across the garden, they would sit beneath their growing home and watch the sky shift from blue to deep, endless violet. But their days were not spent in building alone. They roamed the garden, tending to the creatures entrusted to them, each one unique, each one a living wonder. The lions walked beside them, their golden manes catching the light, their deep eyes holding no trace of hunger, no shadow of danger. The birds, dressed in 100 hues, perched upon Eve's outstretched hand, their songs like laughter woven into the wind. The rivers carried silver fish that leapt joyfully from the water, their scales glinting like tiny stars. The trees stretched higher, their fruit ripening in abundance, sweet and full. There was no end to the delight of discovery. One afternoon, Eve wandered near the meadow where the deer grazed, watching as the fawns danced through the tall grass. One hesitated, then took a few careful steps toward her, its dark eyes wide and trusting. She knelt, holding out her hand, and it pressed its small nose against her palm. Eve laughed, the sound light and full, like the rippling of a brook over smooth stones. Adam approached, shaking his head. "Every creature in this garden is drawn to you." Eve smiled. "They only sense what you already know." Adam lifted a brow. "And what is that?" Eve rose, her eyes mischievous. "That I am entirely irresistible." Adam barked out a laugh, shaking his head. "That may be true," he admitted, "but do not think I am without charm myself." Eve feigned doubt. "Is that so?" Adam smirked. "Watch." He turned and let out a low whistle, a sound only just beyond human hearing. From the far side of the garden, the great white stallion, sleek and powerful, his mane flowing like water, lifted his head and galloped toward him. The earth seemed to hum beneath his hooves as he came to a halt at Adam's side, pressing his nose against his shoulder. Eve gasped, delighted. "You have been practicing." Adam grinned. "I may have a gift with creatures after all." Eve shook her head, laughing. "You may yet prove yourself, Adam." And so they lived, their laughter spilling into the golden days, their love growing in the sunlight. They were not alone. The Son of God visited them often, walking with them in the cool of the evening. His presence was radiant, yet comforting, his voice deep with wisdom and joy. They spoke to him of their discoveries, of the creatures they had met, of the wonder they found in every corner of the garden. He listened, smiling, delighting in their delight. The angels came too, Gabriel, Cassiel, and others, their forms luminous, their presence a reminder of the world beyond Eden. But they did not linger long. They came and went like the wind, watchful, yet distant. And so the days continued, one after another, bright, endless, perfect. The warnings became memories. The urgency faded into the hum of life. For how could anything dark touch them here? How could sorrow enter a world untouched by time? And beyond the garden's edge, where the trees grew thick and the shadows stretched long, something watched, waiting. The dark architect, Lucifer's solitude and the finalization of his plan. The abyss was silent, not the silence of peace, not the silence of rest, but the kind that suffocates, that pulses with unspoken torment. Lucifer stood alone at the precipice of the void, his form a towering shadow against the churning chaos beneath him. The host he had led into rebellion were gathered elsewhere, waiting, restless. They murmured among themselves, some still believing, others doubting. Even now, some wavered, some questioned, but he did not. Not anymore. The plan had begun to take shape, solidifying in the depths of his mind like the forging of a terrible weapon. And yet, something within him resisted. He turned his gaze toward the expanse above. Far beyond this cursed realm, beyond the veil of shadow, Eden flourished. He could see it, if not with his eyes, then with something deeper. The garden, the rivers of living water, the emerald boughs bending under the weight of ripe fruit, the soft hum of creatures that had never known fear, the golden glow of a world untouched, and them. Lucifer exhaled sharply, his fingers curled into fists. He did not need to look to know how they spent their days. He could feel it. Their laughter carried through the unseen fabric of creation, an unbroken melody that grated against his very existence. How easily they loved, how freely they rejoiced, how completely they trusted. He despised it, and yet, beneath his hatred, beneath the venom of his malice, there was something else, a bitter, lingering ache. They walked in the light he had once known. They basked in the presence he had once delighted in. They had been given the very thing he had abandoned. It was not right. Lucifer's breath came slow and measured, though his chest burned with something dangerously close to longing. He had ruled among the stars. He had sung the first note of heaven's song. He had known the presence of the Almighty in ways they never could. And now, he was nothing. Nothing but a fallen king. A ruler of ruin. A prince without a throne. Lucifer's wings twitched at his sides. He would not allow himself to sink into regret. He had long since chosen. And if he could not return to the light, then neither would they remain in it. He turned away from the invisible glow of Eden, his expression hardening into something immovable. They had been warned. They knew of him. They had been told to resist. And so, he would not come in force. No, that was not the way. He had fought once, fought with might, with power, with open defiance, and he had lost. This time, there would be no war, no armies, no siege. Only a whisper. Lucifer's lips curled. A battle fought in the mind is a battle already half won. He had learned this well. Had he not persuaded a third of heaven's host? Had he not, with mere words, turned angels against their maker? And these were not angels. They had never known deception. They had never needed to guard against it. They were perfect. But perfection was not invulnerability. Lucifer tilted his head, considering. He could not come to them in his true form. They would know. He could not threaten them with fear. They would resist. He could not attack them with power. They would be protected. But cunning. Ah, yes. Cunning could do what strength could not. If he could make them question, if he could make them wonder, if he could place, even for a moment, the faintest hesitation within their souls, then the rest would crumble on its own. A house does not collapse from a single strike, but from the weakness of a single stone. Lucifer smiled, but there was no warmth in it. There was only cold, calculating certainty. His wings stretched wide, shadows curling from their edges. He could feel the tension of the abyss, the weight of the decision pressing against him like an unseen force. A final thought flickered through his mind. What if he failed? What if after all this they resisted? What if they remained steadfast? Would they be stronger than him? Would they succeed where he had fallen? Lucifer's hands clenched, his jaw tightened. He could not think like that. There could be no failure. He had already lost too much. And if he did fail, if they withstood, his torment would deepen, his ruin would be complete, and he would be no closer to regaining anything. He exhaled, steadying himself. He would not fail. They would listen, they would question, they would fall, and when they did, they would know what it felt like to lose everything. Lucifer turned back toward the abyss, his eyes gleaming with something terrible. Eden would never be the same. The late afternoon light spilled across the garden, golden and warm, pooling in the quiet spaces where Adam and Eve worked side by side. Their laughter wove into the gentle hum of creation, the rustling of leaves, the soft murmur of a nearby brook, the distant calls of creatures settling into the evening. Adam was kneeling, shaping the foundation of a new enclosure, his strong hands pressing against the earth, steady and sure. Eve knelt beside him, handing him vines as he worked, weaving them into a structure that would provide shade for the gentle creatures that roamed their land. She was his helpmate, his equal, his joy. They worked as one. And yet as Eve's fingers idly traced the curve of a flower blooming at her feet, her thoughts wandered. She exhaled, tilting her head toward the fading sky. Cassiel spoke of him once. Adam did not look up. Who? Eve turned to him, resting her chin in her hand. Lucifer. Adam's hands stilled briefly. but he said nothing. Eve continued, her voice quiet, almost thoughtful. He was magnificent. She turned her gaze back toward the trees, as if she could see the remnants of his splendor in the rustling canopy. Cassiel said his beauty was beyond what we have ever known, that he was adorned with every precious stone, sardius, topaz, diamond, onyx, jasper, sapphire, emerald, gold woven into his very being. She exhaled. Even his voice was music. She smiled slightly, as if picturing it, as if hearing a melody from an age before time. Adam finally stopped working. He wiped his hands against his tunic and turned toward her. "The angels are all beautiful," he said evenly, searching her face. "Yes," Eve agreed, nodding. But he was... She hesitated, struggling to find the word. Exquisite. The seal of perfection. Adam's gaze darkened slightly, though not in anger. He reached forward, cupping her cheek gently, his thumb brushing her skin as if to remind her of something infinitely more precious. "There is only one beauty I care about." His voice softened, deepened, his eyes fixed on hers. "And she is sitting right here." Eve's lips parted slightly, caught between surprise and affection. Adam smiled and, with a teasing glint in his eye, leaned closer. "Now, my love, how about we stop talking about fallen things and start talking about what we're having for dinner?" Eve laughed, rolling her eyes as she pulled away. "Very well," she relented, shaking her head. "I'll gather the food while you finish the enclosure." She stood, brushing off her hands, already considering which fruits to bring back. "I won't be long," she added over her shoulder. Adam watched her for a moment before returning to his work. Neither of them suspected. Neither of them saw. But he had been listening. Lucifer watched, and he remembered. From the unseen world, veiled just beyond the reach of their senses, Lucifer listened to her words. Magnificent, exquisite, seal of perfection. He closed his eyes, and for the briefest moment, he felt it again. His reflection gleaming across the sea of glass before the throne, his garments woven with light, his voice the first note of heaven's song. He had been the seal of perfection, wisdom, beauty, power. It had all been his, and it had not been enough. His heart twisted, but not with sorrow. No, sorrow was for those who repented. What burned in him now was something darker. He had lost everything, but not his mind, not his cunning, and certainly not his birthright. He should be exalted. He should stand above the stars, enthroned as he was meant to be. I am perfection. I will be like the Most High. The thought pulsed through him, electric, undeniable. For all the beauty of the world, all the creatures, all the wonders God had given these dust-born beings, they were still beneath him. And yet, they were loved, given what he was denied. Lucifer's lip curled. He despised them, their laughter, their peace. He despised their blind devotion. But it did not matter what he felt. What mattered was what came next. His form shifted, his essence bending into something new. He could not come in the brilliance of his former self. No, that would be too obvious, too crude. They would never trust him that way. But trust was the gateway to deception. Yes, he would assume another form, a new vessel. He felt the change ripple through him. His wings vanished, his form reshaped, his appearance, golden, radiant, smooth as polished fire, took on something far more inviting, something beautiful, something exquisite, something that could speak, something that could move between the branches of the forbidden tree, gliding through the air, catching the light just so. A creature unlike any other. And as the transformation completed, the once great bearer of light slipped into the garden unseen, taking his place in the tree that had been set apart from all others. His plan was in motion. Eve wandered through the lush expanse of the garden, her hands trailing over the leaves of trees heavy with fruit. She hummed softly to herself, her mind still replaying Adam's words, still caught in the warmth of their laughter. She had not meant to separate from him, not truly. But she did not feel unsafe. The warnings had faded into the rhythm of her days, into the soft familiarity of the world she lived in. The angels had told them of danger, yes, but it had been so long. Nothing had happened. They were still untouched, still whole. She stepped into a clearing, and then she saw it. The tree. It was beautiful, more than she remembered. The fruit gleamed like jewels, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. The branches stretched outward, inviting, lovely. Something deep within her stirred. She had passed by it before, but never like this. For the first time, she truly looked. Why had God forbidden it? What could possibly make it so dangerous? She took a step closer, curiosity blooming in her chest. And then, movement, a flicker of gold in the branches above. Her breath hitched slightly as her gaze lifted. Something was there, something watching. And as the last light of day flickered against the emerald leaves, Eve did not yet realize. She was not alone.